Natalie, welcome to the Visionary Life podcast. I've been such a fan of the work and the content that you're putting out there ever since one of my students, shout out to Sandra, she actually tagged me in some of your Instagram content. And she said, I think you're going to jive with Natalie's approach to business. And so, sure enough, I followed the tag and went down the rabbit hole of what you've been talking about around ethical business and authenticity and creativity and sustainability. And these words, they are literally the heartbeat of our Visionary Life community because we just don't see enough leaders talking about these really vital principles of building a business. And so I can't wait to dive into this today with you. So welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, to begin, could you tell us a little bit of how you found your way into studying and talking about conscious business and ethical leadership?
Yeah, so it's been a wild journey. Like I didn't intend for any of it to happen. Funny enough, I previously had gone to college for art and philosophy. So I was really deeply entrenched in studying design and branding and art, but also philosophy, ethics, sociology, like that kind of stuff as well. And so it always was a really important thing for me to kind of blend creativity and expression and authenticity with also kind of the intersections of ethics and just how we function in the world. And so after being in school and stuff, and not really yet knowing where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do, I stumbled into the entrepreneurial realm and kind of started taking that avenue, not really even knowing I was doing it. It was kind of just following the breadcrumbs along the way, which led me into starting to do coaching and just working with people with a lot of the concepts that now I'm super anchored in. And so just over the years, it kind of evolved to the point where as I was working more and more with small business owners and entrepreneurs, I started just realizing the underlying kind of system we were functioning in that was really harmful and just not the vision of the world that I have personally. And so that was what kind of took me into this realm of like conscious business and ethical entrepreneurship, that supported me in building out my conscious business method framework and just kind of really anchoring into how can we sort of flip the entire industry upside down and actually practice some ways of doing business that really centers the well-being of ourselves, society, and the planet. And so the more I kind of embraced that, the more I realized how critical it was to embrace that of like, this is a non-negotiable if we want a sustainable future for ourselves as a whole. So yeah, kind of just following the wave of passion and things that I really love and build a business around it basically.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because the more and more that I host these podcasts, it's not always the story of I was just born this way and I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but so much more often it's I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I said yes to opportunities. I tried things and, it wasn't my calling. And then I ended up here. And I'm sure you're of the mentality, I'm the same way, that you may not be doing this exact thing in 10 years either because you're going to keep following the breadcrumbs. Is that how you approach the future of your business?
Totally. And that's exact that I'm kind of in that season right now, where I kind of look at it of like, in comparison to nature of, nature is constantly going through phases of, plant life cycle, animal life cycle, ecosystem life cycle. And there's a constant like death and birth cycle of, when a cycle is completed, the being, whether it be a plant or anything, plant seeds and moves on and regenerates and starts again, and so it's like I'm very much actually in that space right now of like, I've completed a cycle, I think, of my career that now I'm starting to plant seeds in other places. And so it's like I think keeping an open mind to there is no end all be all way of how to do business. And we don't have to stay in like the confinements of how maybe we see people online doing business. That doesn't have to be where we end. We can completely like redefine ourselves over and over again and just keep following where those little breadcrumbs lead us.
Mm-hmm. And one of the coolest things about having a business too is that as you continue to grow and evolve as a leader and as a CEO of your business and continue to kind of dig into who you really are at your core, that is nice to be able to be reflected in your business, right? Like you can change and then maybe launch something entirely different and just say, you know what, I've changed and I want to bring you all with me on this journey of growth and evolution. And they always say that your business grows in direct correlation to how you grow as a leader. Yeah. And I so believe that to be true if you're willing to kind of honor that process and roll with the punches.
Yep. Yeah. It's like a total surrender and just like go with the flow, which is really challenging.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned something that I want to double tap on. You said as you were kind of growing your business, you started to see some harmful business systems that we were functioning in. And I'm curious, what are some examples of these harmful systems that you thought, I'm not really okay with copying these other models? I'm going to go do my own thing and find this conscious business, conscious leadership.
Yeah. So that's such a good question because like the way I kind of see it is it's an overarching system of like addiction to growth. So I call it growth mania. We're in like a system of constant growth mania that everything else roots from that. So we see it a lot, especially in like the online business realms. We see this constant hustle, constant grind. It's never enough. We always need more money, more sales, more clients, more offerings, more launches, more followers, more likes, it's like this addiction to constantly getting more. But then that depletes everything. So it's like this addiction to the growth and the progress and the chase. Then ultimately, like we can't exist in a constant state of growth, but yet we're forcing ourselves into that. And so in the process, it leads to burnout, depletion, overwhelm, exhaustion. We've depleted our soil completely, and now it's not even nutrient rich enough for us to actually keep planting things in it. So that's the area that I see being the most harmful, because then through that growth mania obsession, we drive business with profit first over people, over what's best for the planet. And so we see a lot of like manipulation marketing, like really yucky, slimy, manipulative ways of selling, branding ourselves, marketing, which a lot of it's rooted in like a false image too, right? Like a very kind of the highlight reel or, like this performative type of thing, which ultimately then really negatively impacts our community members because they're getting this growth mania approach, false image, performative type of branding. And then that's what we're telling them is the standard of they should want that too. And so we, by proxy, push a growth mania approach onto our community. And then the cycle continues, So I think like that's one thing that really empowers me is to think about at the micro level scale, we as business owners, if we shift our model into sustainability instead of growth mania, that's then setting a new standard for our community so they don't function in that way, our industry, so our industry can shift, and then by proxy, it's going to shift society and the planet. So it's like owning our micro level impact as a way to shift the macro level of the world.
That's incredible. It's so much of what I've been thinking about over the last 5 or so years, because as I was starting my online business, I was taking all these programs and courses, and they were mostly taught by men. And a lot of the principles, they work in some situations, but a lot of them were rooted in false urgency, false scarcity, a pushy sales approach. And I tried that, but it never quite felt right. And I thought, well, why isn't this working for me? And I thought, this is not at all aligned with my core values or how I want to be connecting with my clients. And even most recently, I've kind of taken away launches in my business because I realized that that actually forces someone to start on a certain date or to say yes to you, potentially out of pressure or fear that when that door closes, they can no longer access the program. And the last thing that I would ever want is for somebody to buy when they're not feeling super safe, like 100% safe. And
Yep.
it's interesting because I just don't think you can rush a client's journey. And so I've gone to more of a enroll anytime you want model, which I
Yep.
know is not what I've been taught or not even maybe the most advantageous for growth. But like you said, this is not growth mania. This is about making clients feel safe. Because when a
Yep.
client feels safe, they have an epic journey with you. They'll give you a great testimonial. You push them to spend like $10,000 by a certain start date. In what
Yep.
world does that support a client? So it's really
Yeah.
interesting.
It's so powerful to think in those realms because I did the same thing of like going into this year when I ended last year, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll probably launch this and that. And then I came into January and I was like, I've been on a social media sabbatical. And so I already had stepped away from that. And that like opened my eyes to a lot of just how the system's functioning. And I realized I don't want to launch anything and I don't want to participate in that like high pressure container. And even to the degree of like now I'm even questioning like, do I create more flexible like containers of time that I work with people of like, well, it could be this or this depending on what you want. Like instead of putting these barriers around everybody of like, you should be at this place by 3 months of working with me, otherwise you didn't do the work. It's like all these pressurized, we should rapidly grow in these little containers of time that, or make purchasing decisions or things like that, that it's not good for any of us.
Mm-hmm. It's totally making me think of kind of the Gary Vaynerchuk mentality. You even mentioned the word hustle a few times, and I think there's definitely a crew of people who love that and embrace that. And especially when you're
Yeah.
just getting started and you're feeling that fire and you have the time and energy, go for it. But then there's this whole other opposite mentality that's like, that is not what we should be doing, and what is he saying? And
Yeah.
again, it's like you can find these gurus and mentors and programs in the early stages, but at a certain point, it's like you have to come back home and ask what feels good for you. So for any of the business owners listening, like if a process or a certain, system you have implemented in your work is just not ringing true anymore, it is okay to challenge that and say, well, what would actually align with what I believe or how I want my community to feel. And I just love that
Yeah.
you're all about this.
Yeah, and it's wild because I mean, I would say because I've been in business now for 7 years, and I would say I spent over half of that time in pure hustle and grind, like complete hustle and grind.
Yeah.
Even trying to claim that it's aligned hustle. I'm in flow, but I'm still grinding. And that's one thing also I think that's really dangerous that we see nowadays is this like, do it from a space of alignment or do it with ease. Is there really truly a way that we can hustle and grind ourselves to the bone in an easeful, flowy way? Like, I don't know if that makes sense. And so it's like realizing that we will tell ourselves anything to stay in that growth mania way because we think that's the only way to survive. And so it's like retraining our entire way of existing in this world to realize that's just one phase of our life cycle. Growth is just one part. There are many other phases that if we don't nurture them, we now are not sustainable in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you say like these growth cycles and phases, and you relate a lot of things to nature. And, right now in Canada where I live, we are in the depths of winter. Like it's minus 20 degrees Celsius. short days. A lot of people are hibernating, and there are days when I don't feel like outputting at 120%. And now I've realized, like nature, like this is my season to hibernate, to sleep a little bit, to step back and actually look at my business as a whole, and maybe just do a little bit more thinking and introverted work. So I think that's cool that you tie in those nature principles to the life
Yeah.
cycle of an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And like, I love using it in a way of thinking, okay, what phase am I currently in?
Mm-hmm.
What phases have I been bypassing or not even allowing to exist? Because it is, I mean, if you run your speed and pace of your business based off of the speed and pace of like status quo, like the norm, you will 100% get into the growth mania phase. And that's the only phase that exists. So it's like you have to pull back into yourself and say, like, how am I nurturing all phases of my own business's evolution and journey? Otherwise, like, you're going to hit that wall, and there's going to be no like nurtured ground to keep building off of.
I think you mentioned in one of your podcasts that right now, or previous to this, you were in a phase of what you called ghosting and coasting, which was maybe your way of saying, like, I need to pull back a little bit, self-care, maybe avoid burnout. Can you just describe a little bit of why you decided to do that? And, are you still in this phase right now?
Yeah, I laugh because at the end of 2020, I had kind of just a moment of stop, like a moment of what you're doing, you cannot continue to do. And it was primarily in relation to social media usage. And for most of my years in online business, I poured a lot of time and energy in nurturing my social media presence. And that's kind of the way we think we have to, in order to, succeed online, we have to use these social platforms. And the problem with that, isn't so much the using of it, it's the way in which the platforms use us. And so there's a lot of, I mean, you jump on Instagram and every week there's a new feature, a new this, a new that. So then as a business owner, in order to keep up and get visible, you have to be using that, learning how to use it. And it just, the amount of work that has compounded in using social media for business, I hit a wall in December and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to participate in this. I don't want to try to keep up. And so I was like, it's time for a sabbatical, like a real true step away from social media, not I'm just going to take a detox this weekend type of thing. And that's one thing that's really interesting with, online businesses. We're taught a lot of times like, okay, take a social media detox, take a weekend off or whatever. But the mere idea of that is we need to step away from something that's toxic to us. But what we normally do then is go right back into the toxic system full speed again, where we almost use those detoxes as like recharge so you have enough energy to keep going at that speed again.
Yeah.
And so it was like I just wanted to get away from all of that. And so in December of 2020, I said to my partner, I need to like ghost and coast. This is like a ghost and coast. So it's kind of like an inside joke with us now, of like ghost and coast, of like just step away and let things just maintain for a little bit. Don't be trying to do anything, or no deadlines, no pushing, no hustle, no launching, nothing, and just let things be and see what the next cycle is. Because that was when I realized where I am, it's a closure of that cycle. And there are other things I want to be birthing that aren't in that cycle anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of been the beginning of this year has been a lot of tinkering and exploring and researching to set the foundation for this new cycle I'm stepping into.
Such a magical time to be in. I'm kind of in that phase too, of just tinkering and feeling sometimes a little uncomfortable that I don't have things that I'm reaching towards and deadlines, but I know everything is kind of brewing inside my mind, and I've got, just chart paper everywhere trying to figure out like, what is this? Like, I feel something inside of me, but just waiting until it all comes together and all the pieces start to fit. So it's definitely a fun time. So if somebody asks you today, Natalie, tell me about your business, what do you offer? Can you give us a snapshot of what exists already that you're currently working with clients on?
Yeah. So basically, as simply as I can put it, I teach, write, and mentor on building a conscious business from the ground up. My specialty kind of resides primarily in foundational work, so concept and plan, so the foundation of your actual entity. And then branding, so ethical branding, concept, plan, creating your entire brand from the inside out, and then marketing practices and production practices. So the service and product development and delivery process. So I kind of do, I do teaching and kind of working with business from the inside out and the ground up of like first developing the actual entity itself, the concept, and then building out the frameworks that are going to support you in moving your concept to the vision you have. So that's kind of like the overarching right now.
Mm-hmm. And you do that both through existing online courses and live coaching. Is that right?
Yeah. So I do a lot of, I work heavily with one-to-one mentees. So I do a lot of like one-to-one containers with small businesses, solopreneurs, even teams and organizations. So I even work like right now I work with a legal firm. I've worked with like tech design, companies and stuff like that. So I've done like teams and organizations or the individual like small business solopreneur too. So a lot of one-to-one consulting and coaching. So a little bit of both of those realms. And then the other part is more like education and praxis for like students and courses and classes and things like that.
Mm. And on top of all that, you also share a lot of free value through your podcast and through your existing social media channels. And I actually had a chance to download your Q1 business trends report, which was really cool. And I'm hoping we can actually dive into a few of those principles because I think there's a lot of good, juicy nuggets in there that I would love to hear more about your thought perspective on. So let's dive
Definitely.
into one you mentioned in community trends that you're seeing and hoping to see a shift towards flexible and inclusive pricing models or sliding scale pricing. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned before we started recording, we have a lot of aspiring and early stage entrepreneurs who listen to this podcast. And they sometimes have been told like, just pick a price and go with it and charge high value, high ticket offers only. So I'm curious, what is the whole flexible, inclusive sliding scale pricing? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so kind of even playing off of what we were discussing of like not getting stuck in this framework of like really rushed containers of enrollment process. Also breaking the mold of even how we charge and what our pricing models look like, because there is kind of feeding off of the growth mania model. The growth mania model perpetuates profit as the end all be all goal. So everything is for the sake of profit. So we see in the front end with entrepreneurship and business, somewhere along the lines, the standard became the more you charge, the more credible you are, or the more you charge, the more successful you are, where we've placed these bizarre kind of attachments to our pricing models that when you kind of pull the hood back and you examine, maybe a business behind the pricing, you might actually realize they don't even have any background. They have no like experience, no education. They are literally just kind of regurgitating maybe a course they took or, trends. Like they're just jumping on a trend of what's really popular and they're charging really wild pricing, claiming they can do this too. So there's just a lot of unethical approach to not only like the service we're offering, but the pricing too. And so when you bring in more of like this inclusive, flexible model, it really is about actually getting very honest with how you're pricing and why and where that price is coming from. And is it actually people focused or is it individual profit focused? Because if we really look at a pricing model and ask ourselves that, we have to be really transparent with ourselves of like, am I only pricing myself at this realm because I want to make this money?
Yeah.
Because then that's an ego, like self-centered driven model. If that's your jam, cool, but own it, own that, and be honest with your community members, because otherwise you're practicing really unethical business. So like bringing in more of the inclusive model is transparency practices, considering people before personal profit. So what is of the best interest of people? How is my, material accessible for varying types of people, not just people that are really privileged and really, really easily can access money, right? Because like, if we're really honest with where this world is right now, that's not, the 1% isn't the 100%, right? And so it's like understanding that not only we don't exist in a world where everybody is extremely wealthy, but it's also really stressful to put a lot of financial pressure on somebody that's getting started in a journey with you. So any way that you can alleviate pressure and stress for somebody starting to work with you, you're now giving them an empowered purchasing journey, not a disempowered one. And so it might mean, sliding scale payment plans, just offering payment plans and not inflating the pricing when you offer them, or running some scholarships, or doing maybe once a quarter you do pro bono, like one pro bono client or something, or just flexibility, where also it allows your client or student to feel safe to ask you, to help them have their needs met financially, right? Of like, if they have a financial hardship but they really would benefit from what you're offering, working with them and being willing to have a conversation about money to help meet their needs, right? Rather than like, this is what you got to pay me, and that's all there is to it. If you can't meet that, go rack up credit card debt so you can, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's a reminder for all of us to go back to the why. Why are you in business? Because there's always chatter in our ears saying, raise your prices or inflate your payment plans or have really strict boundaries with clients, like their package expires even if their mom died. And it's like, okay, it's easy to listen to that and say, you're right. Like, I should raise my prices. I should have strict boundaries around my time and my energy. However, when you think back to why did I start this business in the first place? For a lot of the listeners in this community in particular, it's because you have a heart to serve others and you want to see change in this world. And that's why I love this principle of having flexible pricing and not penalizing people if they can't meet a certain structured pricing. And if that why really rings true to you, you do want to offer people maybe a break on payments or create a custom payment form for them, because that heart to serve is still there. And I see it so clearly now, and I hear you talking about it too. There's this world that exists in the online space of, I'm worth $10,000, and like you said, you don't even know what credibility. And more power to them. If the buyer feels informed enough and they enjoy what they got out of this $10,000 mindset coaching or whatever it is, great. But I do think that there's a lot of misinformation being shared in that world, and a lot of these really stale and harmful practices of, hey, I'll teach you how to make money, but it's like, what are you actually sharing with them? So yeah, it's pretty interesting, but that's why I am so fond of this conversation that we're having, that you can come home to that inner leader of, no, like this doesn't feel good in my soul and I'm allowed to do it differently. And you also said having a pro bono client. That's something I don't often talk about, but I think that's such a wonderful way to give back to your community. And I know that's something else that came up in your Q1 business trends report, was to make a name for yourself in the community. So is that one of the ways that you can kind of do that, is to offer your work to the people who live in your town or to the local business owners?
Totally, totally. And there are so many ways to establish yourself in a really meaningful way. And I really think it comes down to prioritizing community care of like, okay, I live in Portland and there is always something going on in Portland of like, something to get involved in, advocate for, protests, like there's constant stuff going on. And there's always also constant need for things. We have a really horrible homeless issue here. And so like, or, another thing, especially for Portland, is we have a lot of individuals really advocating for Indigenous people's rights and getting land back and funding and supporting Indigenous tribes local. And so I always think about like, okay, with the things going on here that we have crises around, an issue around, or harm happening to people in my community that I literally physically live in, are there ways that I could take my skill set and support? Are there ways that I could get my skill set in front of people without expecting anything in return? Like doing it because I love thinking about like, belonging in community, whether it is online or in person. Every single person in the community has a role to play, right? Like we all have something that we could barter and trade with or give to support the community and overall thriving. And so it's just a matter of thinking about, okay, what's going on in your community, whether it be online or in person, that you could offer up and contribute something. Like what is it that you can give, just because you know that that's going to actually help the community as a whole, and that's all that matters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think one of the easiest examples of that is with COVID. The last 12 months, we've seen so many small businesses having to close their doors. Many of these local businesses across the world have never been forced to have an online presence, right? And so at the start of COVID, when things were shifting into that online space, it was so beautiful to see a community of people coming together saying, hey, I know how to build websites. I'm gifted at social media. I am a marketing strategist, and rallying around these businesses to support them, knowing that, you're not going to get paid for this work. However, like you said, in that barter, like there is something coming to you in return. And maybe that business mentions your name to another
Yep.
person who ends up becoming your client. And it's getting out of that me mentality, especially as solopreneurs and people who have personal brands. Like it's not about you, right? And
Yep.
we have to get out of that ego that tells us that, it's all about money, profit. And like you say, growth mania, like where's the value there? We
Yeah.
got to get back to
Yeah.
those community roots and get out of our four walls of our home, which has been difficult, but that's where, that true community exists, is in that give and take and that
Yep.
exchange of energy.
Yep, totally. Yeah, and it's like realizing that by supporting the community, you're supporting yourself, and that it's just strengthening the ecosystem that we are a part of. And so it's like when we remove ourselves from that or only focus on what we want or what we think, we should get or whatever, it ultimately is going to oppress somebody else if it's just individual, focus. So it's like working in more of that like interconnectedness of everything rather than this like independent me for my own.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. One of your other Q1 trends that I want to double tap on was that you were saying that this is the year or the quarter to get creative in turning up the rebel, revolutionary, and innovator archetypes. I'm curious, can you crack that open for us? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. So the way I kind of see it is because I take a lot of note from like stuff that happens astrologically or just kind of I'm a very big researcher and I love trends. Like I love to study systems and how they function, why they function, and maybe what the issues are within them that could be tweaked and changed. And so when it comes to this year for 2021, one of the trends I kept noticing is I mean, we witnessed it all of last year, especially of like last year was more of like a illuminate the issues and the things that are just not working for us and not sustainable. Whereas this year it's like start shifting it, start integrating some new ways, which requires that like rebel of, ooh, I'm going to break the mold. I'm going to go against the status quo, or like the revolutionary or the pioneer visionary of birthing new, right? And that's the one thing that's so awesome is we have our imagination for a reason, right? Like we have our imagination because we have the power to envision and create new at any given time. But sometimes we're too busy and stuck in the very system that we're in that we can't get that vision to create new. So it's like having to kind of pull out, get a bird's eye view of what we're existing in and saying, this needs change, this could be better, this could be refined. Okay, let's activate my like inner rebel and start changing it. I love using disruptor energy of like, what do you want to disrupt? Like, what is it that you're seeing is just not something you want to continue? Okay, cool. Activate that like refusal energy and that disruptor energy and be the visionary for it.
A friend of mine, Michael F. Shine, he just wrote this book called The Hype Handbook. And it's all about creating ethical hype, like not hyping up, a stupid product or something that's not going to be life-changing for somebody. But when you have something really good, how do you rally people around your ideas, and how do you garner attention, or what he calls ethical hype? And one of the questions that he asks all his readers is to figure out like, what is that rebellious thing that you want to let out? Because I think we all kind of have that inside of us. Yeah. But one of the questions he asks is, what is a concept that is traditionally regarded as gospel in your industry that you simply don't agree with? And as soon as I asked myself that question, and I've been in the marketing world for the last 10 years, I had a list of like 50 things. And I'm like, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. And it really helped me to not only uncover my own thought leadership in this whole realm of building a brand using marketing strategies, but it almost gave me the permission when I saw it written down, like, this is my rebellious idea. And yes, there are other people who believe in what I believe, but at the same time, it almost gave me that permission to like, all right, now let it loose and share this with the world, because this is who you really are. Like, these are those ideas you don't agree with. And hopefully you can connect with people and the right clients around this shared belief of how marketing as an industry has led you down the wrong path. So yeah, I'm really fond of that idea.
I love that so much. And it's so exciting because, we can either continue doing things blindly, or we can really step into like that leadership realm of like, this is where it could be better. This is how we could be better and do better. And it does take those people that are willing to kind of shake it up a little bit and take some risks and definitely upset people along the way, because people hold on to tradition like white knuckling, right? And so it's like the willingness of what comes with stepping into new paradigms, and being ready for some backlash with it.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about your leadership for a second. Did you feel like you always had this voice that you wanted to share and these like ideas around your thought leadership, or is that something you had to nurture over time?
I definitely never saw myself like that, like ever. I'm actually quite introverted. And I don't really like, I'm not the type of person, I get put in a space and I'll instantly be the one to start conversation or, have a conversation circling around me or anything. I'm usually the one that's like, I'll go stay on the side. I'll go kind of stay over here. So I've never really saw myself as, like a powerful speaker or anything, but I love to share what I love. And so I think for me, a lot of my leadership has just been about allowing myself to not hold back or hold myself back in regards to the things I love and care about, and letting just my passion for that guide me, and not question or think too much about it. Because even when I started doing a lot of speaking stuff or public teaching and speaking or writing or anything like that, it was always when I got too much in my head to try to be, I have to be this way, that I lost the potency of even like my message. So it's always been trying to stay really embodied, and not really worry about how it's going to be portrayed, but just get it out there.
Mm-hmm. Is there any specific things that you do in a week or in a month to hone in on those leadership skills? I know you mentioned you like to obsessively research things and read, but I'm curious, like, how do you become a better leader on a quarterly basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I have kind of like a daily and weekly practice that I really, really live by that helps a lot. Every single day, I write in some capacity. Sometimes it's formal writing, like I'm writing an article or a blog or something that's going to be published. Other days, it's messy, just ideation, just like messy pouring out whatever's in my head, creativity wise. So I do that daily. That helps a lot with language development and concept development. And so I'm constantly refining my ideas through my writing process. And then I research constantly. So I'm always staying engaged in the topics I'm passionate about. So if I'm, wanting to speak more about branding or speak more about, service experiences for customers and community, I'm going to be like completely immersed in that content, researching, looking everything up I can, so that keeps me really activated. But it also helps me learn where other people are so I can gain other experiences and perspectives. That way I don't get too trapped in my own bias, So that helps a ton as well. And then like with speaking, I try to do this kind of stuff, or like just keep engaged in any speaking opportunities that I possibly can. So I'm always trying to make sure I have things on my schedule monthly that force me to use my voice, whether it be I'm doing it for my own podcast, or I'm, lecturing in a community space or something, or what have you. I'm always making sure I'm practicing, like staying practicing.
Yeah, I mean, we always hear that word with yoga, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
practice, but it is the same with leadership. You can't just kind of retreat into your office and run your business from your laptop without, stepping out front once in a while and plugging
Yeah.
into different communities and sharing your ideas publicly, just so that
Yeah.
you can get good at communicating clearly like what this idea is. And that's where business growth happens, and that's where leadership growth happens, is when you tell somebody else about your idea, and then maybe they resonate with it, whether they agree or not, but then they're going to share that with another. Next time they're out talking to someone and they say conscious leadership, they'll be like, oh, you need to message my friend Natalie or go listen to her podcast, right? And that's how good ideas spread, is
Yeah.
by sharing them in the first place. And I think where so many early stage business owners kind of struggle with that is they think they have to have everything perfect in that starter phase, and they don't want to share what they actually believe because they're so worried about judgment and about that one person who's going to say something, a sly comment at family Thanksgiving. But how can we really understand whether you're a business we want to invest in if we never hear who you really are, what you believe in as a business at your core? So I
Yeah.
think that's great practice to show up in community, speak. You say you write something every day or create something every day. So it's a really gentle reminder to anyone listening that you have to work on establishing this thought leadership. And one of the best ways to do that is to create content.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like cultivating your body of work. Like that's how I kind of see it. It's like
Yes.
stay consistently engaged in the cultivation of your body of work. So it's like daily practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not to say that like your body of work has to be a podcast, doesn't have to be a YouTube channel, doesn't have to be writing. Maybe you have a email list of 40 people and you send them like a little tip of the day. Like that's
Yep.
establishing your body of work, because at the end of the year, you're going to have 365 tips that now you can create into an ebook. And I think sometimes we try to compare and think, well, I'll never be able to write blogs like nutritionist number 54, and it's like you don't have
Mm.
to, right? It's
Yep.
figuring out what lights you up and how you want to share your ideas.
Totally. Yep.
Why do you think it is that so many early stage business owners, we'll call them, they feel like they have to be this perfectly polished, well presented, rather than just showing up as who they really are? Like, why is this a epidemic in business?
Yeah, it it's honestly sad because I think in a lot of ways we've kind of done it to ourselves. We've put the pressure on ourselves so much to do that we just keep doing it. And then new people get in it and they're like, it's just this cycle. But I think a lot of it is also this kind of playing into like society's definitions of what it means to be successful, or what it means to be beautiful, or what it means to be powerful, or what it means to be wealthy or rich or whatever, where we have these kind of very skewed definitions of these things that we all innately as human beings want. Like those are basic needs and wants that we have in us, but we have a very skewed definition of them that now we're trying to like live up to them, but they're not real, they don't exist. So then we perform and we set these like false standards of expectation. So I think that's a big part, is just the narrative we are literally upholding through practicing these things. But the other part that's really unfortunate is also specifically in the online business realm, marketing realm, branding realm, the image of like socially acceptable definitions of success, power, beauty, whatever, are what sells. It's what people get clicked on. It's what we're consuming, and it's what we're doing. And so like to shift that, we have to shift how we consume, what we vote with every click that we click on, and then we have to shift how we show up as people, and give that real, not like the highlight reel. So it's kind of like a practice of how we output, but also what we input.
It's so good. I recently, back in January, I guess, I just did a full social media detox where I actually just unfollowed everyone. So now I just follow zero people on Instagram, and it's been about a month now. So when I open my app, I actually don't get any content, because when you don't follow anyone, they don't know who to suggest to you either. And it's been really nice to actually see who I've been seeking out their content. Like there's probably only 6 or 7 people that I was really wanting to see their content and that I was really feeling lit up from reading their posts or watching their stories. And it's just been good to kind of get rid of all that noise and, just these people who weren't necessarily adding value to my life and who were maybe projecting on me that I had to be a certain way, that I had to, have a certain type of aesthetic in my feed. So
Yeah.
it's just been nice to kind of like give myself some space, similar to how you're on your sabbatical, and just really assess like what place does this platform serve in my life, but also in my business, right? Because I think we have to balance that. Like, can I run my business without being on social 24/7?
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's like bringing so much more intent to everything, because it's like remembering that like impact matters more than intent too. Of like, if we're business owners showing up, how we show up ultimately impacts our community members and ripples out from there. But then how we consume as people ultimately is teaching our algorithm based world we exist in what we want more of. So it's like we're upholding systems through how we show up and what we consume. So if we shift those things, we're going to shift the system.
Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned something in your Q1 report that you see SEO as an important part of building your organic traffic. So now that you are taking an Instagram sabbatical on your personal account, have you been using SEO more as a lead gen strategy?
Yeah, so I'm still pretty very beginner level with how I work with SEO. But I have been focusing on it more now than I ever have, ever. But one of the main reasons why I personally not only see it as important, but like I'm prioritizing it too, is the future of social media is not it's not very secure right now. And so, if we are wanting to build a sustainability driven model for our businesses, we have to shift into more sustainable practice that doesn't force us to depend on social media for business. And so, SEO, though, is a fantastic avenue to take because then you're building more organic traffic, organic lead gen. It's actually way less work. That's what I've noticed as I stepped off social media. I'm like, this is so much less work, like focusing on other avenues of lead gen and business, sustainability. So it's just kind of getting back to some of the um, more kind of traditional methods of business that don't require social media constant interaction.
It's so true because on social media, it feels like it's never enough and it's always changing. Like you said, they're introducing all sorts of different features and it can feel kind of like you're drowning. SEO for me has become the top driver of leads in my business. And I didn't even do anything intentionally with it. I've just been producing this podcast for 3 years, and there's always a new blog post that goes up with the topics, with all the things we hit on, with a lot of hyperlinks to people and places and things that we mention in the episode. And of course, all my topics for the show are business, marketing, community growth, finding your purpose, passion, things like that. And just by nature of having these conversations on a weekly basis and updating the blog, a really good blog post to showcase your brilliance as the interviewee, that has naturally increased my SEO to a place that I never ever could have imagined. So it's not that we need to be, paying millions of dollars for somebody to do keywords. Just produce really good content and do it on a consistent basis. And that is like the long game though, because SEO does not work instant and people want that instant gratification.
Yep, I think that's the biggest problem, even like further perpetuating that growth mania. It's this obsession with now. Like you can grow your business on Instagram and you're going to get instant, validation, even if it's really not producing business results though. Like it might be, oh, you had a post that really did well and now you're validated and you feel like you're moving your business along. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what I notice is most people are spending a crazy amount of time on social media building their business, but it's actually not producing the type of results that they could be producing if they actually scaled that back and generated more quality content, not quantity, and just made life a lot easier with like SEO and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I want to ask you a question. I didn't plan on asking you this, but if you could kind of rewind your journey like 5, 6, 7 years, what do you wish you knew back then in relation to growing an online business?
Honestly, probably that there's so many things, honestly, but probably the number one that comes to mind is this concept of you do not have to depend on anything that maybe somebody told you have to depend on in order to create whatever type of success you want. The most important thing to do is to define success for you and to to rally to move in that direction, and not get swept up in other people's wants and needs over your own. Because I think that's what a lot of it is we get caught in this trap of, so and so's going after this need of, I think I need, 50K months, or I need this, or I need that. So we think that's what we should go after, and we want and need too. So it's like redefining all of that, of what we actually need and what we actually want and how we want to do it. And that it doesn't have to look like anybody else's journey at all.
I love that. That is a hot topic here on the Visionary Life podcast, is smashing those milestones you feel like you're supposed to reach for, or those beliefs that maybe your mom projected on you, or maybe it was your first business coach that projected them on you, and really like ripping those off and saying, wait, what do I want? What brings me joy? What impact do I want to have on the world? But it's funny because it's easier said than done. Like, you and I have clearly both been through the journey of hearing a lot of noise from external people, and maybe it projected onto us to the point where we implemented it. And then you have to go through this motion of basically like unlearning and untangling. Like, wait, is this how I wanted to build my business? Or is this something that was projected on me or taught to me by somebody who has no business projecting?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. So, in wrapping this up, I'm curious, do you have a vision for where you want to take your business? Or are you just happy in this flow and in this space of just kind of thinking and honoring the process of, we'll see where it goes?
Yeah, I'm kind of living in between both, because one of my kind of like patterns is I tend to, oh, I have an idea, let's go. And like run, like start it right away, run full speed. I should have the whole plan mapped out and know every step. So I'm trying to not do that, but I still do have some ideas for like where I want to go. This year, I actually decided to dedicate this entire year to research, writing, and studying, and building up some new channels, to basically kind of prepare myself to move more into getting ready to write my first book that'll probably start this year and maybe even launch next year, depending on how it unfolds. And shift more into consulting and coaching on larger scales.
Mm-hmm.
So moving more into even potentially organizational and corporate level. So yeah, just kind of moving into different directions beyond the space I have been in.
Mm-hmm. So exciting. And it's a fun place to be in, where, you've kind of got some entities working for you, but then allowing yourself that dreaming space and stepping away from the hustle of business, for lack of a better word, and just saying, okay, like, I'm going to give myself a little bit of space to imagine what's next and what else is possible. Because we got into business so that nobody was putting a box around us, but sometimes it can feel that way when you're trying to, do things a certain way, or just not giving yourself that space and that creative freedom. So it's definitely an awesome spot to be in. Natalie, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? How can they get in touch, even though you're on your Instagram sabbatical?
Yeah. So I would recommend just head to the website, nataliebrite.com. I've been really loving spending a lot of time with very intentional newsletters. So I've been sending out some really juicy newsletters with tons of value, kind of taking what I used to do on Instagram, and now it's actually in longer, more meaningful form in newsletters. So definitely check that out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will link that in the show notes so that people can go subscribe. And I just realized I'm not subscribed, so I'll go do that right after.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I really, really admire your philosophies around building a conscious business. I think, we need to hear more of this. So I can't wait to continue following along what you're up to. And I would encourage everybody to just go check out your work and see what resonates. So thank you so much, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you.